Welcome back to the Prado Museum. We're here again with our weekly session in English on the social media programming. It's a project supported by American Friends of the Prado Museum, and we are very pleased today to have a special session with Alejandro Vergara, the Senior Curator of Flemish Painting, who's going to speak to us today about a painting that's here on loan in the beautiful Central Gallery of the museum.
Thank you, Cristina. I'm so glad to be here with you in the museum, with Bernardo also, who's filming us. And the reason why we're doing this is because the Rubenshuis, a museum in Antwerp, the museum that's closest to Rubens' life, has been generous enough to lend us this picture for 2 years. They're closed for renovation and they gave us this extended loan. And this is a very well-known painting for those of us who study Flemish paintings. It's called the Art Gallery of Cornelis Van Der Geest. That's the name of the man who owned this collection of pictures. And it was painted by a fairly little-known painter, Willem Van Haecht. The picture is amazing. It depicts a fictional visit by the rulers of the southern or Spanish Netherlands in the city of Antwerp. These two people, Isabel Clara Eugenia, sister of the King of Spain, who governed as sovereign princess the Spanish or southern Netherlands, what's now Belgium, and her husband and cousin Albert. They're visiting a collection owned by a man called Cornelis Van Der Geest. It's this guy over here. And the painter has turned this visit into an homage to the collecting of Flemish paintings. And that's really why we wanted so badly to have this. That's what we are. Look at the painting and then look at the gallery. It's basically the same thing. The idea of painting collections of paintings first came up in Antwerp around 1600, 1605. So the idea that this is something worthy of being painted, an homage to the collecting of art, it's a very Flemish thing. It was invented in Antwerp. Let's see what we see here, because it's really fun. We see, as I said, the two rulers, Isabel Clara Eugenia and Albert of Austria. She's holding a tiny little painting by Jan Bruegel the Elder, Flower Piece, reminding us that some of these paintings were made to be looked at that close up. We see other paintings where they have magnifying glasses and so on. We see a bunch of very well-known people here. This is Rubens himself, who is leaning over and explaining to his boss, one of the two rulers of the time, talking to him about the painting that he's kind of holding, or that's just to his left, this Virgin and Child by Quentin Metsais. The man who's actually pointing to the painting is, again, the collector, Cornelis Van Der Geest. Look at his left arm. He's kind of bringing it to his chest as if saying, this is very dear to my heart. Van Der Geest is saying, by making this picture the protagonist of the painting, that this is his favorite painter. If you look at what's hanging here, we have more paintings by Quentin Metsais and Rubens than by any other artist. So those are, in the opinion of this group of elite collectors, the two leading painters from the city of Antwerp. We have other important people. We have Anthony Van Dyck. It's fun to have all these people here because we have so many paintings in this gallery made by these painters and collected by these people. This is Anthony Van Dyck, looking older than he would have looked in 1615 when these two people visited this collection. The painting is actually made 13 years later, 1628, and it mixes visitors that came at different times. Look at this man here. He's Ladislau Vasa, Prince and future King of Poland. He's the only one that hasn't had to take his hat off in the presence of the rulers, because he is also a monarch himself from a royal family. It's really fun to look at all these pictures. First of all, the fact that collections are mainly of paintings at this time. And until about 50 years earlier, you would have found natural objects, less paintings and more objects. Collecting was a little bit different. It's now moving towards the collecting of art. And in that way, this is a very clear precedent of what we've done in modern museums nowadays. That we have a lot of very famous paintings. I'll note a couple of them. This is an Adam Elsheimer picture. It tells an ancient mythological story. That's especially interesting for us because the original is most likely a painting that's now in the Prado, and another story, one story up from where we are right now. Most likely what happened is that Rubens, the painter, purchased it from Van Der Geest when he died, and then Philip IV of Spain, we know, bought it from Rubens' heirs when Rubens died, so that's why it's in the museum now. Another fascinating picture. This is a woman at her bath, or toilet, it's usually called. It's a picture by Jan van Eyck, who was a mythic painter from the 1430s, 40s, 50s. The painting doesn't exist anymore. There's a copy in the fog in Harvard and in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and then we know it from this. This is probably much bigger than it was originally, but Jan van Eyck was a mythical figure. Every artist wanted to be his heir, to follow in his footsteps. Come down here, Bernardo, if you can. These are also references to other mythical painters in the past. This is Alexander the Great, accompanying his painter Apelles as he paints a woman on his canvas. This is another way of saying there's a genealogy of painting. It includes Apelles, it includes Van Eyck, it includes Metz, it includes Rubens and Van Dyck. This down here is the only picture signed in this whole big painting, J.V. Haecht. That's a signature by the artist who made all of these things. It's interesting that he must think this is the most important painting in here. It's in the center, and it has its signature, the only one that does. If you want to learn about how things were framed, how things were exhibited at the time, these paintings are fascinating. Notice, for example, two things. Two of these paintings have curtains. These could have been drawn over the painting, and maybe to protect them from the sun, maybe simply so the collector would invite a friend and say, look what I have, and open it rather theatrically. You can see it here and here. There may be some other that I'm missing. Another interesting thing that I find here, some of these pictures that he's reproduced on the wall have little squares. I think we see it here maybe, Bernardo, do you see it here? You see those little lines drawn in pencil, maybe down over here as well. That's a little grid that the painter has used in order to keep their proportions. You know, every square he could reproduce what was in the bigger square in the original painting, and therefore he made sure that this reduced copy of an original painting owned by this man looked kind of like the original. We can see Chinese porcelain that was being imported into Europe, drawings, shells, interest in natural objects. These are remainders of an older way of collecting. Move to the right if you can. Move over here. I just want to show you some of these people. This is Franz Schneiders, the great animal painter, friend and collaborator of Rubens. There's a beautiful portrait of him by Anthony Van Dyck, also in this painting as we saw, which is now in the Frick collection. This is based on that portrait. This is Jan Wildens, an important landscape painter who painted landscape backgrounds in many Rubens paintings. I wanted to point to something before we finish. This man here, Nicolas Rocox, was one of the members of elite society in Antwerp and a leading patron of the arts. He was responsible for commissioning from Rubens something that we have just across the hall here from this painting, that big Adoration of the Magi. And come over here also, Bernardo, if you can. I just showed you a portrait of Schneiders. We have a picture here painted by Schneiders in collaboration with Rubens, this big painting that mixes game and kind of heroic figures. So again, and to finish, you know, what we have in that beautiful gallery of paintings is, sorry, kind of an homage to people who decided this was of great importance. They are the closest museum to Rubens. We have the largest collection of Rubens in the world with 91 or 92 paintings, depending on attributions. This kind of links the two of us, and again, we wanted to do this Instagram to inform people about a fascinating painting, to pay homage to Flemish painting in general, but also to thank the Rubenshuis Museum in Antwerp for this great loan.
So thank you very much, Alejandro.
Thank you, Cristina.
That we can see how that painting reflects also what we see live here. So it's different layers of art altogether.
And also this royal family who collected all these Rubens paintings and all these other paintings in the Prado, Isabel Carrarojena, she's a part of that family, so we're very closely linked to the history of Flemish paintings.
That's right.
Thank you.
So we know that the Prado is so important in Flemish painting, and sometimes we don't know that necessarily as visitors that come for the first time. So thank you very much, and thank you all for being with us again today, and we will see you again next week.